The Runaway Wife. It is an emotional novel about the life of a fallen Muslim girl. This is also a love story of an Egyptian prostitute who fell in love with one of her clients, who changed her life for the better. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a tribal system, or transmitted by any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by the reviewer, who may quote brief passages for the review for print in a newspaper, journal magazine, school journal, or a university article. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, it is purely coincidence. Chapter 11. The beloved Ikram and her lover Hafiz searched everywhere and asked many people to direct them to the orphanage located near the central prison, but no one here or knew about it. Some people responded with astonishment when they heard the word orphanage. The only place left for Ikram and Hafiz is to go to prison. Because of Ikram's fear of the police, the two lovers dropped the idea and returned to the hotel. The runaway wife became heartbroken that day. She lost hope of finding her two outcast sons, Adil and Imad. As usual, Ikram sat by the window and continued drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. Hafiz sat near her and tried to calm her down. He assured her that they would not give up until they found her two children. After he learned the reason for her escape, Hafiz began to see Ikram as a victim. He concluded that his girlfriend did nothing wrong to deserve this humiliation and punishment by the authority of the law and Islamic society. Even her secret relationship with her Christian lover Gabriel was not a reason for her condemnation. The unfair way her Muslim husband, Tayyib Saleh, treated her and married the other two women as her co-rival wives led her to search for someone who would give her true love. After a long silence, Hafiz said, "My dear Kram, tell me the rest of your tragic story." His girlfriend looked at him surprised and said to him, "I told you everything. I want to help you, my dear Kram. I want to know what happened to you after you ran away. It is too late, my dear Hafiz. You cannot change the past. Even God cannot change our past. Since I left the house of the murdered witch doctor and fled, I have never seen the light of the day again. All my days turned into dark nights." Ikram's eyes began to shed hot tears. Hafiz wiped the tears from her eyes with his handkerchief before hugging her. "I know we cannot change the past, my dear Ikram, but at least we can change the present. My beloved, I love you so much, and I don't want to see you drinking yourself to death. I want to help you overcome your addiction. You are still clinging to the past. You are punishing yourself for a crime you did not commit. You cannot change that either, my dear Hafiz. If it wasn't for drinking alcohol, I would have killed myself a long time ago." "No, Ikram, you are killing yourself anyway. Alcoholism is a slow and painful killing. Please, Hafiz, let me drink the way I drink. I cannot get over this habit now." "Yes, you can, if you reveal your past to me and I help you get rid of it. A victim girl like you is not a criminal, but the men who use you and abuse you are the real culprits." The runaway wife stared at her boyfriend Hafiz for a while. It seemed that she did not understand the true meaning of his words. The look in his eyes confirmed to her that her lover, he loved her so deeply. Ikram found herself facing his love for the first time. She is afraid to compare the love of her Muslim friend Hafiz with her love for the Coptic Christian boy Gabriel. She became even more frightened when she asked herself who she loved more between the two. Unconsciously, she mixed Hafiz's love with the dark side of her life of prostitution and addiction. Although she left him as a dear friend, she did not surrender to his love completely. She always saw that the only true love she had in her life was with her Christian lover Gabriel. So Ikram asked him seriously, "Why do you love me, Hafiz? Why do you love a fallen girl? What is it so good about me that you love?" Hafiz hesitated in answering his beloved Ikram's bold questions. He understood the moral behind her inquiries. In order to answer her questions, he had to choose between honor and beauty. She expected to hear from him those two possible answers. However, his love for her transcended it, her honor and beauty, and embraced her soul. He loved her spirit, which could not be drenched or distorted by any external factors. It is neither your beauty nor your honor that I love. I love your noble spirit. Ikram looked at her friend Hafiz with great admiration. She became amazed by his answer. She understood that he loved her, no matter how she was in the past and how she became in the present, or what she will be in the future. His words of sincere love encouraged her to tell him what she was hiding from him in her heart until now. Since childhood, my dear Hafiz, I've been told that a woman's value is in her honor. If she loses her chastity, nothing can restore it to her. She will become a fallen woman. She deserves to be slaughtered in an honor killing by her father, brother, or husband. If she was brave enough, she should take her own life. She must either burn her defiled body or take a knife and stab her sinful heart. The girl who rejects the two most bitter options will have her place among fallen women and become prostitute. Because I love my innocent two children, Adil and Imad, I chose the third alternative. They are the only two dear ones who kept me holding on to my painful past life. Yes, on that fateful day, I suddenly lost everything that I consider dear and precious in my life. I lost my children, my husband, my parents, my brother, my house, and my hometown. I even lost my dear Christian lover Gabriel. The police officers and their police dogs were chasing me, and I ran into the streets. I did not wait at the scene of the crime committed out of my honor and tried to defend my innocence. I knew that no one would believe me if I claimed to be a chaste and honorable wife and a victim of blackmail. Who would believe that I was blackmailed into being an adulterous wife and raped against my will? The only person who could attest to my innocence is Fakir Muhammad, but that evil wizard was killed because of his sinful act. My husband killed him because he dared to touch his wife and violate his honor. I wished my husband had I wish he had stayed alive and confessed to his crime, then breathed his last, and his soul went to hell. I also wish it instead that my husband had stabbed my heart with his knife and killed me because of my heinous act. Ikram stopped speaking and wiped away the tears that fell from her eyes and obscured her vision. She then looked at her friend for a few seconds before resuming her tragic story. I lied to my husband that day when I told him I was going to visit my parents' house. Most likely, he did not believe my words and followed me without my knowledge to Faki Mahmoud's house. Often, my husband would ask me about my feelings for him. He realized that I had changed after I returned to his house after having my vulva legalized by the penis of the Muhallil husband. He even accused me of still having a love affair with my Christian neighbor, Gabriel Girgis. I always denied my love affair with the Coptic boy. I told him that I had no friendship with Gabriel. Ikram paused it again for a while and waited for Hafiz to comment on her story. Her eyes met his. He turned his face away and pretended to be busy looking for the bucket of cigarettes. He took out a cigarette and lit it. Then he looked again at her. He found her eyes still asking him to comment on what she said regarding the death of her lover, regarding the death of her blackmailer by her husband. I don't blame you for changing, Harvey said. Why didn't you blame me for changing and cheating on my Muslim husband with my infidel Christian lover, Gabriel? Because your husband is the one who led you through all of this. He was not honest with you from the beginning. He's supposed to reveal to you his infertility and his lack of ability to conceive children. He wasn't supposed to lie to you about why he married Nabila. Because you wanted it to prevent him from marrying her, you went to the witch doctor to solve your problem. But at least I was guilty and an unfaithful wife in surrendering to Faki Mahmoud's sexual blackmail. I still wouldn't blame you for that. Look around you to see how many Muslim girls have been forced into marital relations with men they did not want to marry. They resisted it at first, but in the end, they surrendered to pressure from their families. But these girls were legally married to these men. Our Muslim girls have been trained since childhood to obey male power. They could not resist any demands imposed on them by their fathers, brothers, and husbands. Whether these demands are right or wrong, just or unjust, this does not justify their disobedience. Their male counterparts had absolute rights over them, upheld by the divine laws of Islamic religious texts, the Holy Quran, and the sacred hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. If they refuse to obey, they will be beaten and considered women who rebelled against God's law. They can even be killed in honor killing or killed as an apostate from Islam. For this reason, a Muslim girl may resist at first, but in the end, she surrenders willingly or unwillingly to the provisions of Islamic Sharia law, which favors men over woman and blesses the woman as helpless prey under the arbitrary authority of her father and the tyranny of her Muslim husband. In your case, you objected it to your husband's marriage to Nabila, and you objected it to having sex with the Muhallil man who raped you in your family's house under the pretext of legalizing your private parts for your husband, and you resisted the blackmail of Fakim Mahmoud, who forced you to commit adultery with him. However, in each case, masculine power prevailed and triumphed over feminine power, and you had no choice but to obey and submit to lustful and selfish men. You are absolutely right in your analysis of my problem, my dear friend Hafiz. My fight against male supremacy did not end there. I continued to fight for my rights and honor until I was forced to engage in prostitution and fall helplessly prey into the hands of men and addiction. Everywhere I went, I tried to prove my chastity. Since I have been homeless, no one has thought I am a good girl. Everywhere I went, I found that people had one definition of what a good woman was. No woman can be considered righteous if she does not have a husband or a muhram man like her father or a brother to protect her. No matter how well I behaved, I was unable to change this definition of the Muslim woman, whom Islam describes as an aura or a naked, who is deficient in religion and intellect, and who comes in the form of Satan and retreats in the form of the devil. And if she leaves her home, the devil Iblis will take charge of her and uses her to cause a man to commit adultery with her or rape her. Everywhere I went, each man saw me as a walking, talking, open pussy, attracting him toward it like a magnet to his phallus. Chapter 12. The lover Hafiz looked at the face of his beloved Ikram and said in a sad voice, "Where did you go after you escaped from the whole house of the blackmailer, Fakim Muhammad, who was slaughtered by your husband with his knife in front of your eyes?" "I went to my friend Raja's house. She was my classmate at the girls' high school. Raja was an exceptionally nice girl. She lived far from my house. I told her about the murder and explained how I was forced to commit adultery with the blackmailer. I told her that I was raped by him, became pregnant twice, and gave birth to 2 illegitimate sons. I gave birth to them without telling anyone about their biological father, who impregnated me through deception, blackmail, and rape. Everyone saw that the children of my husband, until my husband caught me red-handed with the blackmailer. Raja felt sorry for me, but also expressed her shock at the murder of the rapist blackmailer. She said that any man in my husband's place would kill such an evil man. Then she informed her mother. Her mother did not comment on my problem, but her eyes revealed her disbelief in the cause of the crime. It seemed that she thought that I was an adulterous wife who was cheating on my husband with the slaughter witch doctor. I waited at my friend Raja's house until her father came. When he learned about the murder and my involvement in it, he advised me to go back to my parents and tell them the truth about my husband killing a man he caught me in indecent, illegal seclusion in the room of his house. I told her father while crying bitterly, "They will not believe me that I am innocent and a victim of blackmail. So how do you expect us who will not know about you as your family knows you to believe your innocence?" I responded to his words by crying, and I said, "But uncle, I was forced to surrender to the blackmailer." His wife said, "Your parents know you better than us. If they don't believe you, if they don't believe you are an innocent wife, no one in the whole world will believe your story. A chaste, honorable, free Arab girl would rather kill herself or throw herself in the water of the river Nile than allow another man to rape her." And they stood from their words that neither the mother nor the father of my friend Raja believed in my innocence. Only my girlfriend felt sorry for me. She sat next to me and hugged me. She cried bitterly with me as if she were in my miserable situation. Her parents allowed her to keep me at their house for a day. Her father told me that I had to leave his house the next day. The following day, my friend Raja gave me some money and her mother kicked me out of her house. My affectionate classmate cried bitterly as I was leaving her home. After I was kicked out of that house, I went to another friend's house, a girl named Asia, who was also my classmate. She was not as close a friend of mine as Raja. However, Asia expressed her willingness to assist me. Unfortunately, her parents did not agree to keep me for a day when the reason for the murder was known. My friend Asia secretly gave me some money and the address of one of her relatives who lived with his wife and their children in Cairo City. She advised me to travel to the capital city of Egypt to meet her relative and ask him for help. At first, I wasn't ready to leave my city. I was afraid to travel alone and risk living in a large cosmopolitan city like Cairo. I hear many sad stories about girls who became pregnant through adultery, rape, incest, and or marital infidelity, and they fear honor killing, so they fled their cities and went to other cities. Most of their lives ended in vice, prostitution, addiction, prison, and suicide. After that, I went to the house of some of my relatives. They hear about my sex scandal and the killing of the witch doctor Faki Mahmoud by my angry husband. So they weren't surprised to see me. They told me that the police authority was looking for me. I was afraid that someone would report me to the police, that I would be trapped in their house, and that the police would arrest me inside their home. So I left immediately. I didn't tell them where I was going. I realized that there was no safe place for me in my city. Finally, I decided to flee for fear of the police and the consequences of the adultery and honor killing scandal. It was late in the evening when I left my relative's house. I returned to my first friend Raja's house and begged her parents to let me spend another night at their residence. I told them that I had decided to travel out of town the next day. They accepted my request reluctantly and allowed me to stay in their house. Early in the morning, I left their home and went to the railway station. I had enough money to pay for my ticket, which my classmate Asia gave me and advised me to travel to Egypt to meet her uncle and seek his help. I was told at the train station that the trip to Cairo would take 2 days. I only had a little money left after buying my ticket to the unknown destination. The money I had left was not enough to buy more than 2 meals. I preferred to save the remaining money instead of using it to buy food. So I only had one light meal of fava beans, falafel, and loaf of bread, a sandwich. During the long flight, I spent most of the time weeping and thinking about my difficult problem and my unknown fate. Suddenly, everything in my life became uncertain. Overnight, I became an unfaithful wife, an adulteress, a runaway, vagabond, and a homeless woman on the streets. I arrived in Cairo city at 12:30 in the middle of the night, and most of the streets were deserted as most people were asleep in their homes. I was afraid to rent a taxi and go all alone with its driver at night. I spoke with an elderly woman who traveled with me and arrived in Cairo city on the same train. She agreed to join me in the same taxi. She was an exceptionally kind and good woman. She refused to let me pay my taxi fare with her. She first took me to my final destination before she went to her house. As soon as I entered my friend Asia's uncle's house, I realized it was not the right place for me to live even for a single day. The lady of the house was not happy to see me. She lived with her husband, 2 daughters, and her son. Her daughters were much younger than me, but her son was my age. Her husband was drunk when I came to their home. He tried to hug me and kiss me in my lips in front of his family. His wife pulled him away from me and scolded him. So I became too afraid to spend one night with that drunk man who was the uncle of my classmate Asia. Then his wife took me aside and began to inquire about the purpose of my visit to their house. I did not trust her to reveal the truth about my problem with my husband and the police. I told her that I had a problem with my family and I ran away from home because I was in love with love affair with my neighbor. I promised her that I would leave her house as soon as the morning came. This poor family had only one room. Their entire house is just one room. It was very cold outside, so we all had to sleep in that single room. Because of my fear of the drunkard husband and their son, I could not sleep that night. The son kept harassing and sexually approaching me all night. Several times I felt his hand touching my body and trying to reach my buttocks and breast. Somehow I managed to protect my body from him as much as I could. I was relieved. One morning came. I had the opportunity to sleep for a while when everyone else woke up. When the mother woke me up, I found that her 2 daughters had gone to school. Her son went to his work too. Her drunk husband did not go to work that day. He pretended to be sick with a fever and headache as a result of drinking too much alcohol last night. The wife wanted it to go to the market to buy some grocery and meat, but she didn't want to leave me with her cheating husband. She waited it for me to leave their house first. So I have been faced with the problem of finding shelter since day one. I wanted it to ask her to allow me to stay in her house until I found someone to provide me with work and safe shelter. My fear of her drunkard husband and lustful son prevented me from asking her to keep me in their house for a longer period. But I didn't know my way around town or where to find work. I asked the woman to give me the addresses of people who she thought might help me find safe shelter and decent work. She gave me the addresses of two of her neighbors. She said she used to work as, as a servant in those two houses. I thanked her and went to the first address. The family of the first address said that they had a maid and therefore they did not want another. The second family agreed to hire me as a maid servant. It was my first job and I felt very happy to find honest work and a safe shelter so quickly. The family that offered me a job as a maid was a rich Egyptian family. The husband was a wealthy business tycoon. His wife was a young and beautiful woman. She was his second Muslim wife. His first Muslim wife died, and he married that young woman after he became a widower. He was an old man. He looked like her father or grandfather, not her husband. They had three young children. The rich man spent most of his time in his office in the main market. I told the woman that I ran away from home because my father wanted it to kill me. When he found out that I was having a love affair with my neighbor, I did not tell her that I was a married woman with two children in my town. She believed my story and agreed to keep me in her house, but her husband wanted it to know whether or not my lover had slept with me and impregnated me. I assured him that I had never done anything anything like that with my boyfriend. His facial expressions revealed that he did not believe my story, but he ignored it. After that, neither he nor his wife asked me any more questions about why I had to flee my family and my city. I worked in that Ferris house for 2 weeks without any problems. The woman treated me kindly. Sometimes she went to visit her family. Whenever she went, she took two of her children and left the youngest one with me. I became a maid and a nanny for their children. One day, while the wife was out of the house with her three children, her husband returned. That day, his wife went to a wedding of some relatives and left me alone. Her husband knew I was alone in his house. He had never come so early before. At that time, I was in the kitchen when he came. I knew he had come because I heard his car driving into the garage. He came into the kitchen and tried to approach me inappropriately. When I felt his hand touched my ass and started moving lustfully between my large buttocks, I quickly pulled away from him. Please stay away from me, sir, and don't touch my body again. I told him angrily. I'm not a bad girl. I didn't say you are a bad girl. I want to ask for your hand in halal Islamic marriage. You are already a married man with 3 children. What is wrong with that? I'm an extraordinarily rich man. I can marry you too. Is it not permissible for me as a Muslim man to marry 2 women at the same time? Islamic Sharia law allows me to marry 4 wives. Sir, your wife trusts me, so I don't want to discuss something like this with you. If you are afraid of my wife, we can do it secretly. You are a young and beautiful girl. I will marry you according to the holy book of God and the sacred sunnah of his prophet Muhammad and keep you in another house. Can you leave me alone, sir, and go to another room? The rich old man seemed to think that I was only afraid of his wife. He came closer to me and touched my body again. I pushed him away. He did not give up. He took my hand and twisted it. I told him, if you don't release my hand, I will scream and call the neighbors to rescue me and beat you up and call the cops on you. He let go of my hand, but he didn't leave the kitchen. He didn't seem to believe that I would scream and ask for rescue from others. I left the kitchen and sat in the living room. He came after me. He sat next to me on the same sofa. He hugged me. He hugs me again. I pushed him off me and stood up. He rose to his feet and tried to hug me again. I ran out of the living room. He followed me like a dog running after its bitch to sexually prey on her. I ran away from his home as if I was running away from another rapist. He didn't come out after me. I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to go back to the other house where there was a drunkard husband and his useless son. I stayed in the street until midnight. Then I returned to the same house I had escaped from. I found that the young wife had already returned from the wedding party with her 3 children. The woman did not ask me where I was. Her husband probably lied to her about my absence and told her that I went to see my other relatives. I did not tell her about the immoral incident in which her husband wanted it to bargain with me into a secret Islamic marriage, and when I refused, he tried to rape me. From that day onward, I knew that my working life with that family would not be safe. That is why I decided to look for another job. I went back to the first lady, the wife of the uncle of my classmate Asia, and told her about my problem with the old man. I asked her to find me another family to offer me an honest job without any sexual harassment. She told me that wherever I go, I will face the same problem of sexual harassment by males. Then she said to me, why don't you marry the rich man and become his second Muslim wife? I did not accept her advice and decided to look for another job. I had no choice but to go back to my temporary job and stay with that young woman and her nasty old husband until I found another job. The lustful old geezer was constantly harassing me. However, I never gave in to his evil demand. Meanwhile, I was looking for other work in neighboring houses in the same locality. The young wife suspected that her old husband was interested in me, so she asked me about it. I confessed to her what he had done to me in her absence and what he intended it to make me his secret concubine. I told her that he wanted it to marry me as his second Muslim wife secretly, but I rejected his proposal. The woman quarreled with her old husband and left the house. I knew that the impudent old man would rape me if I stayed in his house for one night after his wife left him with her children. But his mother-in-law brought her daughter and grandchildren the same day. Then she scolded at him and forced him to apologize to her daughter and expel the young maid from his house. Therefore, I was expelled from the house and worked as if I were an adulteress who had caused a quarrel between spouses. I was told to leave and never come back again by the mother-in-law. I left immediately and returned to my first place. I spent the most terrible days of my life with that family. The eldest son sexually harassed me every night. I could barely sleep at night in the one room of that house. The drunken husband also made two attempts to rape me. On the first attempt, I managed to escape from him and left the house. There was no one there but him and me. On the second attempt, he would have raped me if I had not screamed and the neighbors had rushed to save me. They found that the man had torn my clothes and made me half naked while climbing on top of my body. So the angry neighbors beat the rapist and saved me from him. They also called the police on him and he was arrested. He was handcuffed, held in custody, and charged with assault and rape of an innocent girl. When his wife returned home and learned of her husband's arrest and the reason for his imprisonment from her sons and daughters, she asked me to leave her house and not return again. That day, I lost the only shelter I had. Accordingly, I became homeless girl in a large and cosmopolitan city like Cairo. Chapter 13. The former Egyptian prostitute and the runaway wife Ikram tried to speak more, but her throat became severely choked. She started crying loudly. She felt as if everything that had happened to her in those dark days was repeating itself all over again. Hafiz carried her in his arms like a baby and allowed her to bury her face in his chest and cry from the terrible pain and anger boiling in her heart like the molten lava of a volcano. Ikram cried for a long time before she could continue telling her tragic story. I learned the importance of shelter from my experience on the streets on day one. I was sexually harassed by men everywhere I went. My miserable conditions promoted me to go to the main market and look for work. I didn't want the sun to set that day while I was wandering the streets like a prostitute. I got a job in the first store I entered. It was a job as a sales girl of men's and women's clothing. Only Ethiopian and Eritrean refugee girls can do this kind of work. This is because work exposes the girl to constant harassment by men. Every man saw that the saleswoman was a valuable prostitute who could go with any man who wanted her on his bed. Even though I got the job, it didn't completely solve my problem. I worked it for a few hours that day. I asked my employer to provide me with shelter until I had enough money to rent a place to stay on my own. He told me that housing for his female employees is not his concern. He advised me to talk to his other working girls. He had two refugee girls working for him. They were both originally from Eritrea. They were young and single. One of them agreed to take me to her place where she lives with other Eritrean girls. She was actually living with three other refugee girls from the same country. I've seen Abyssinian refugee girls in my city wearing bands, banties and shirts and trousers like boys, but I have never seen any of them smoking cigarettes or a shisha. As soon as we left the store, my hostess lit her cigarette. Because of this masculine behavior, every step we took, Egyptian men harassed us like male dogs that chase two bitches to sexually prey on them in broad daylight. Thus, some of them followed us. I did everything I could to discourage these lustful men from harassing and stalking us. I literally spat in their faces, verbally fought with them, and threatening to call the cops on them. As soon as we got rid of one man, another man came and walked behind us like a mad dog. Inside the bus, male passengers harassed us. My Eritrean hostess kept telling me that I should ignore them. She saw that the more disturbed I became by their sexual harassment, the more persistent they would become. It seems that experience taught her that ignoring them would make their situation less dangerous for her. However, I felt ashamed to see her being physically harassed and did nothing about it. I would push away the hand of every man who touched me on my butt and chest or leaned on me with his erect penis. When we arrived at her place of residence, we found three other girls and at least six boys. Each of the girls smoked cigarettes or drank shisha. These Eritrean girls wore very short dresses. Almost all the private parts of their bodies, like thighs and hips, legs, and half boobs, were exposed as if they were naked. I felt uncomfortable in the residence, which looked like a brothel or a belly dancing cabaret. It was worse than a whorehouse or a nightclub, like wearing a swimsuit at the beach. My host changed her jeans and shirt and put on short panties and sleeveless tight shirt. I became afraid to spend one night in a dorm where girls and boys gathered. I wondered if the boys were staying with the girls who were not related to them. My fears began to fade as I saw the boys leaving the girls' dormitory one by one. By 11 o'clock at night, we were just girls. My hostess gave me her bed and slept on the floor. I slept peacefully that night. The next day, my work colleague woke me up at 6:30 a.m. In less than an hour, each girl was ready to go to work. My hostess told me that two of the Eritrean girls work as maids in the houses of wealthy Egyptians, while the third refugee girl works as a waitress in a popular restaurant. I decided to live with them until I found a better alternative. for to living alone. My new friend liked the idea and welcomed me to stay with her. I asked her about the Eritrean boys, and she said that every girl has a boyfriend but is not married to him. The other three boys were either relatives or friends of their lovers. She also told me that she too has an Eritrean friend whom she loves, but he did not come that day because he was working as a sweeper in some government office on the night shift. I did not like the Eritrean girls' short dresses that made them look half naked and unclothed, and their habit of smoking cigarettes and hookahs. But I liked their freedom that was not controlled by a father, brother, or a husband. I was the only girl among them who was wearing an ibaya and hijab. When the other girls learned that I intended to stay with them, one of them objected it. Her argument was that my staying in their residence would attract the attention of the neighbors because they were African foreigners, while I was an Egyptian Arab citizen. Although her point of view was strong, the other girls did not accept it. I lived in peace with these Eritrean girls for 3 weeks. I didn't like my job at the clothing store. It seemed that our main task as busy girls is to attract men to the store. Most of the males came there to stare at us and lust after the Eritrean girls' semi-naked bodies. Some of them tried to date me or make sexual deals with me after my work hours ended, but I rejected their immoral demands, quarreled with some of them, and expelled them from the store. In the new dorm, I got to know more about my Eritrean mates. I learned who was friends with which girl and who she was related to which boy. Some of the refugee boys tried to be friendly with me, but I kept my distance from them. During those 3 weeks, almost everything happened in the same way every day. Same male visitors, same meals, and same bedtime. One Thursday evening, that routine life suddenly changed because Thursday evening is the day before the weekend on Friday. I was told that every girl usually likes to spend it with her boyfriend, either at the movie theater or staying in the dorm to have fun. On that Thursday, each Eritrean girl drank alcohol, slept with her boyfriend, and had sex with him openly in one of the rooms, even though she was not married to him yet. Such immoral behavior was normal for them as if they were hookers and jerks from the streets. As the night progressed, each of them got drunk and danced with her friend and the rest. That night, several other new girls and boys joined the group. They sounded it like they were in a Western discotheque or an Egyptian cabaret for Eastern belly dancing. They played very loud music and danced. The residence had been converted into a nightclub for belly dancing, a disco hall, or a brothel and tavern. I decided to move out the next day from the residence, which was not suitable for an Egyptian girl like me. I asked my Eritrean co-worker to find me a place to spend the night. She said that they were celebrating the birthday of one of the girls who had turned 20 years old. The party, loud music, dancing, and orgy continued until late into the night. I don't know if some of the neighbors complained about the loud music or if the night police were passing by one of the roads next to the residence. Suddenly, more than 20 armed Egyptian police officers raided the rental house. We were all arrested, boys and girls. We were first taken for a, a breathalyzer test. The results of medical examinations showed that all the girls and boys were drunk. I was the only Arab girl who was found free of alcohol. The police officer in charge was surprised to see me among these refugee girls and boys. He questioned me more than he did with them. He took my name, address, and place of work. He wanted to know more about me. He suspected that I lied to him about my identity. I was released the next day after spending 24 hours in detention. The girls, as well as the other boys, were detained in prison until they were all flogged for drinking alcohol and making noise until late hours of the night. But they were not punished until they stood before a judge. Once I was released from jail, on the next day, I started looking for another place to live. So, rental landlord or a landlady was no rental landlord or a landlady was willing to rent a residence to a single girl. I did not go to work that day. I called my boss at the store and informed him of the mass arrest and its reason. The same Egyptian police officers in charge who interrogated me at night went to my workplace first and then came to my residence. I was alone when he came to the place of the Eritrean girls who had been arrested while drunk. He claimed that he came to investigate my suspicious activities. I became very afraid to be with him alone in the house, which became like an abandoned brothel of prostitutes. His inquiries about me have nothing to do with the mass arrest last night. He told me I've been a police officer for 10 years and I learned from experience that a beautiful young Egyptian girl of my age will not leave her Arab Muslim family and come and live with these obscene Eritrean refugee girls unless she does something disgraceful and flees from her family. Now I know that you will not confess to me your shameful crime that caused you to displace from your family's home. At least tell me where your family lives. I lied to him and told him that I was an orphan girl and I had an old mother and a young brother. My father, who had been ill for a long time, recently died of cancer. I came to this big city to look for an honest job to earn money to support my family. My mother is elderly and disabled. Where's your mother now? She lives in a village in southern Egypt with some of my relatives and my little brother. Why don't you bring her here to stay with you? I will bring her soon. I found an honest job and just started working. I need to work for some time to earn a little money to help me rent a modest residence and bring my elderly mother and my young brother, Samir. Where is your village? In Abba, Egypt. I lied to him about my place of origin. You came all the way from the south alone to come to work in Cairo City? Yes, sir. Why didn't you work in a city near your village? I came here because there was more job opportunities for girls in Cairo than in my province. Tell me the name of your village. I can't tell you that, sir. My mother told me not to reveal my place of birth and upbringing to anyone. Why doesn't your mother want you to hide the name of your village? Because it is a shame in my village for an Egyptian Muslim girl to work. Isn't it shameful for a Muslim Arab girl from Upper Egypt to come and live here alone? She lives with prostituted Ethiopian girls in a place like this, similar to brothel and par. There, I would not have left my home and my town if circumstances had not forced me to do so. Listen, Miss Ikram Salah, I'm not convinced by your story that you told it to cover up your shame. However, Egyptian law does not allow me to detain you and put you in prison unless you committed it, a crime that deserves to be punished. I want you to know that the refugee girls you are staying with are not chaste girls. They are all prostitutes, drunkards, addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, and without good families to take care of them. I thank you for your advice, sir. Since last night's incident, I have already decided to find another safe shelter. I can help you find a safe shelter if you accepted it, my advice and help. I know a good Egyptian woman who rents rooms to single guests like you. Although the police officers promised to help me find safe housing, I did not trust him. His eyes revealed to me his Anira sexual lust for my sexy body and the beauty of my face. In order to discourage him from imposing himself on me, I asked him to give me time to think about the matter. But it is not safe for you as a pretty single girl to stay here alone any longer. In addition, the neighbors will put pressure on the owner of this residence to evict you. Sir, I will talk to my boss at work and he might help me find another place. I hope your boss at the clothing store is still interested in keeping you working with him. I went to him before I came to you and already informed him of your arrest and the charges against you. His information about his visit to my workplace made me realize that he wanted it to close all doors in my face until I agreed to seek his help. When he was unable to convince me to accept his help in finding another accommodation, he left. His expectations, or rather, his plan that he hatched against me at my workplace succeeded, as he said. The next day, when I went to work at the clothing store, my boss fired me. He said that my immoral behavior and being locked up in prison while drunk might harm his store's reputation. I tried to convince him of my righteousness and that I was not drunk like the other Eritrean girls, but he did not believe me. He said that the police report, which the police officer showed him, stated that the two girls who worked with him were caught in a brothel and were dead drunk, having sex with men with whom they had no marital or blood ties. I was paid my wages for the 21 days I worked there. When I returned to the rented house of the detained Eritrean girls, I found the landlord waiting for me with a large lock in his hand. He gave me 24 hours to find new housing. On that day, I searched everywhere for another safe shelter. All my efforts were in vain. Disappointed, I returned to the residence of the imprisoned Eritrean young woman, which had become like a hideout for thieves. Shortly after I arrived at the sunset, the same lustful police officer came to the residence. I didn't like seeing his face again because I didn't expect him to come back and I didn't wanted it. He asked me if I had arranged new safe accommodation for myself. He also told me that he had received a collective complaint from the neighbors. In order to get rid of him, I lied to him and I said that I had found a new place and was moving there. He wanted to know why I would leave after I moved out of the house I had been evicted from. I cannot say anything about that or tell you where I go from here, sir. My last sentence disappointed all his efforts. I could see the anger on his face when I said that frustrating sentence to him. He rose to his feet and stared at me for a while. There is no excuse for the one who is wanted. Those were his last threatening words to me before he left. Chapter 14. The Egyptian wife who fled from her home, her husband, her sons, and her city, and became a homeless girl in the streets of Cairo, drank some cups of strong Astubian alcohol, anisha, and smoked some cigarettes before resuming her tragic story to her friend. I spent most of the next day looking for a place to rent, but I couldn't find some accommodation. There was no owner of a rental place to be willing to rent even one room for a single girl. Some cheap hotels and motels have their management say that Egyptian law does not allow a woman without her husband or a father to reserve a room and stay in it alone even for one night. So in the evening, I returned to my temporary residence with great disappointment. I found the rental owner waiting for me with a big padlock in his hand. I handed him the keys to all the rooms of the imprisoned Eritrean girls and left his residence. I knew the night would come to me very soon. I couldn't imagine myself spending one night out in the open like a stray dog. The streets were crowded with loiterers, scoundrels, criminals, and prostitutes. My first idea was to search for a foreign hotel that allowed European women to stay alone. I abandoned this idea when I remembered that for a young single girl like me, a hotel would be as dangerous as the streets, and the price would be above my budget. Moreover, I learned that no hotel allows an Egyptian Muslim woman to be received without her Muslim husband or a muhram male, such as her father, grandfather, or adult brother. While I was won- wondering where to go to spend my first night without shelter on the streets, I suddenly remembered that there was a girl from my town studying at the Teachers College for Girls in Cairo. I didn't even remember the girl by her first name. The only thing I know about her is her family name, Habiballah family. I stopped a woman on the road and asked her to direct me to the girls' teachers' college. She told me the name of the bus that goes to that college. I immediately got on the bus and went there. The college hostel was heavily guarded by armed police as if it was a jail for female students. I asked the guards to allow me to meet the dormitory administration. The hostel warden was initially not willing to contact the student I came to meet because I did not know much about her and could not remember her first name. I mentioned her last name Habiballah and the city she came from in southern Egypt. I lied to the lady warden of the interior and told her that I had some money to give the girl. After I begged her, she revealed to me the girl's first name and she called her. The girl also did not remember my name, Ikram, but she said that she remembered that she had seen me before. Then I took her aside and revealed my problem to her. I trusted her and told her the reason that promoted me to flee our town. She showed great concern about my tragedy. She took me to the cafeteria and bought me dinner. Then she told me that she has a boyfriend in town who is engaged to her and that they will get married soon. She suggested that I stay with his family until I find a solution to my problem. I was very happy to accept her suggestion and her offer to help me and trust me. Then she immediately phoned her fiancé and asked him to come to take me to his house. That student's name was Amira Habiballah, and her fiancé was called Munir. Her lover was an officer in the Egyptian Navy. Amira was a beautiful white girl from a Turkish background. Her fiancé, Munir, was also a handsome young man of Turkish origin. I later learned that their families immigrated to Egypt and settled in our country many years ago. Munir arrived in his military uniform and in his car to pick me up. That day I felt great relief that my seemingly unsolvable ordeal had been resolved. A few hours ago, I was in a completely hopeless situation, and then good people agreed to accommodate me in their home, and then I was transported in a Navy vehicle. Officer Munir and his Turkish family members spoke an Arabic dialect that was foreign to me, so I found it difficult to understand it at first. His mother and father were very good parents. He had two sisters. One of his sisters recently got married. I did not know whether the student Amira revealed my secret to her fiancé Munir or not. I told her to keep it top secret and not tell anyone about it. The next day, she and one of her fellow students came to visit me at her lover's house. We spent most of the time talking about our city and comparing it to Munir's city. Her lover's older sister lives with her husband in her family home. She was the sweetest person I ever met. I love her from the first time I met her. She was very honest and open. She told Amira in front of everyone to be careful that the lovely girl Ikram did not steal her fiance's heart from her. Munir answered while laughing. In this case, the saying that the wilderness hen drove out the house hen will come true. Munir's sisters said, yes, Ikram is a very beautiful Egyptian girl. The student Amira replied, you should also be careful that she does not steal your husband from you. At first, I felt uncomfortable with the way the Turkish family spoke to each other. Munir and his two sisters talked to their parents as if they were their friends. They can criticize them and disagree with their opinion very easily. I interpreted it as a disrespectful behavior, but then I gradually started to like it. Munir's younger sister was in love with someone. Her parents encouraged her to go out with him and sometimes invited him to come to their house. My parents will not allow such an open love relationship of me with a young man before marriage. Nadia, Munir's older sister, always praised my beauty in front of her family members and Amira. One day, I had to correct her when she told Munir in front of Amira that I was more beautiful than his fiancée. Munir interrupted me saying, yes, Ikram, Nadia is honest in what she says. It is true that you are more beautiful than them all three. You look like an actress in an American Hollywood movie or an Egyptian movie superstar. Even you claim to be, even if you claim to be Miss World or Miss Universe, people will believe you. Amira said angrily, beauty should not only be in the face and body, but also in the heart, soul, and good morals. Her heartful words pierced my heart like a sharp knife stuck in my chest. I tried to convince myself that she didn't mean to hurt me, but she was serious about her comment. Nadia picked up Amira's unfair judgment on me and tried to repair the damage to my heart. She shouted it at Amira, yes, you are right, but Ikram's heart is as pure as gold. Have you known this girl Ikram for a long time? Amira asked Nadia challengingly. Not long, but I can still judge by the short time she has lived here. She is the best Egyptian girl in her behavior, manners, and respect for people that I have ever known in my life. That day, I realized that something was not right going on between Nadia and Amira. I learned more about this matter from Nadia after the student Amira returned to her college. Before Nadia married her lover, Amira was against their friendship. She even accused her of having sex with her lover before their marriage. She also criticized her younger sister Sophia's love relationship with her boyfriend. I can understand why Amira criticized the two sisters' behaviors. I tried to explain to Nadia and Sophia the difference between their upbringing and the way Amira was raised in my town. However, the two sisters considered their brother's fiancée to be a mentally retarded girl who was hateful towards them. They publicly admitted that they wanted their brother Munir to break off his engagement to the student Amira. Even the parents did not like their son's fiancée because they considered her reactionary, envious, and self indulgent. Munir became very affectionate with me and wished me a beautiful future in Cairo City. Meanwhile, his sisters, Nadia and Sofia, tried to push his feelings towards me beyond the normal affection towards a girl who lives with them. They even wanted him to leave Amira and fall in love with me and marry me. In order to discourage them, I told them that I had a boyfriend. I also told them that because of my love affair with him, I ran away from my family, home, and my city. But they were very smart girls and could not believe that I had a lover who I ran away from and came to Cairo. They told me that my behavior did not show that I had a boyfriend. In any case, in that atmosphere charged with hatred between the student Amira Habiballah and the family members of her fiancé, the naval the naval officer Munir, I lived for more than a month in that new residence. It was the only happy and peaceful time I had since I fled my city. I wanted it to work as a closest sailor or a maid servant for the Munir family, but the Turkish family did not accept it. I told them about my bitter experiences with the first two jobs in an all man's all husband's house and his young wife, by work in a clothing store as a sales girl, and what happened to me after I was caught with the Eritrean girls who were dancing and drinking and fornicating with their lovers. Munir's parents advised me to join a vocational institute and receive some training in typing. I liked the idea, especially since they suggested paying my fees. Following their advice, I registered myself to learn writing and typing at an evening institute designated for vocational training for girls. I used to go by bus every day and practice for 2 hours on the typewriter. I attended it writing and typing classes in Arabic and English. I continued my training for a full week before my problem started all over again. One day, the fiancée Amira came to her fiancé Munir's house and spoke to me in secret. She took me aside and began to whisper me. She was so nervous and so angry that her mouth became foaming like an agitated cow. She accused me of conspiring with the two sisters of her fiancé, Nadia and Sofia, and creating discord between her and her lover. The accusation was that I was standing by the two sisters' side by encouraging Munir and their love separate from her and break off his engagement to her. She also told me that her friend Munir started praising the beauty of the new girl, Ikram, more than her. She concluded that my presence in her fiance's home would make him and his family members hate her and would ultimately lead to him breaking off the engagement and he will marry me instead of her. She made me feel as if I had repeated the same selfish behavior when I fell in love with Nabila's lover, At-Taib Saleh, and married him. That is why Amira asked me to leave that house and go somewhere else. She gave me a day to leave, or else she would reveal to her lover's family my shameful secret about the honor killing that my husband had committed against a luxurious man because of my involvement in adulterous relationship with him. In order to put more fear in my heart and make me flee in on horror, she said that she would inform the Egyptian police in Cairo City about my adulterous relationship with the murder witch doctor and about the honor killing that my husband carried out against him, which promoted me to flee my home and my city. She left me with no choice but to leave immediately. She said that she would not leave her lover's house and return to the teacher's college boarding school, that she would remain there for some days until she was sure that I would not return there again. So I fled from her fiance's house, and my heart was filled with more fear than the terror I felt when I fled from the house of the blackmailer, Faki Mahmoud, who was slaughtered by my husband in a brutal honor killing in front of my eyes.